My name is Linda Brown. I'm transgender and I use she, her pronouns. I grew up in the Hollywood district in Portland and I went to Grant High School. I've known since I was 6 years old that I was probably a little bit different. I started dressing in my mother's clothes when I was that age. And it was all in secret, big secret. That's really some of the hardest part of being transgender, and especially, I'm a product of the 50s and 60s, and so it's not a perfect world now for transgender people, but in many areas, especially in Portland, it is a lot safer to come out as a young person in as transgender or gender expansive, gender nonconforming. But when I was growing up, that just wasn't an option. So, so I lived my life in the closet. I'm also, many people that I've talked to that are in my demographic have a lot of the same storyline. In that, and one of them is that you think that if you just were able to get married, that would solve everything. And so I got married a little bit later than some other people. I was 32, and still keeping it a secret from most everybody. And so I helped my wife raise 3 boys. They all moved out. They got college educations, and they got married. And so then it was a little bit harder for me to keep Linda totally inside me. And so coming out to my wife was a really difficult situation because, like I said, getting married is sometimes what you think is going to, be the answer, and that cross-dressing would just disappear. But that's not the case. And so coming out to my wife was, it was difficult. It was difficult, and it wasn't easy for either of us. But we wanted to stay married, and so we just figured it out. We just negotiated and said, okay, you can do this, or I can do this and this and this, but if you do this, then that's going to be really hard on our marriage. And that ended up, that wasn't an ultimatum, but it was something that I really had to think long and hard about, is if I actually went through the gender reassignment operations, then that could have spelled the end of my marriage. And I wanted to stay married, so it's not in my journey to be 24/7. I'm very happy being going in and out of genders, being more gender fluid. We live in a rural part of Clackamas County, and so there's some safety issues that are that concern us out in our neighborhood, and so I am not Linda 24/7, and I'm very happy in my male life. I had a landscape business for 30 years, and just I like getting dirty and driving tractors and 1-ton trucks, and I just really like that part. And I really like being Linda. And so now I came out as Linda basically with the help of the Northwest Gender Alliance in about 2001. And I was 52 years old then. And with the support and the help of the Northwest Gender Alliance and other groups like PFLAG, and I was able, and the Q Center, I was, I was very glad to be out and have people that I could talk to about what their lives have been like, and compare notes and that sort of thing. And so once I got comfortable with being out in Linda, as Linda, then um, uh, I became the public relations director for the Northwest Gender Alliance and started doing quite a bit of outreach. I've spoken to uh, church groups, congregations. I've spoken to college classes, nursing classes, anyone who is willing to listen about transgender and being transgender, and the journey that is so different for each transgender person. And so after doing that for a few years, I was introduced to the Human Rights Campaign at the local steering committee, and I was interested in politics since I was 18 and had become active in the Clackamas County Democrats. And so through the Human Rights Campaign and with basic rights, I really started advocating for better laws for the transgender community and for the LGBTQ community as a whole. And I ended up being on the National Board of Governors of the Human Rights Campaign for 6 years. So that meant trips to Washington, D.C. twice a year and lobbying on Capitol Hill as much as we could. So I've ended up lobbying probably 10 times on Capitol Hill for the LGBT community so that we could get national laws that help our communities, and just being out as Linda for the good of transgender visibility. And it's funny, I've been to Washington D.C. I've been to New York City. I've gone to the Metropolitan Opera as Linda, and I'm more nervous about coming out in my own neighborhood in Clackamas County than I am of being out and visible in these huge public settings. And so I finished my time with the Human Rights Campaign. I'm still very supportive of them, but in a leadership role, I've stepped way back. And then I was invited to become a board member of the Portland Opera. And so this is brand new to me, but it's very exciting. There's not too much difference between Linda and Greg. I feel like I've integrated both personas into my basic personality. I don't attempt to change my voice when I'm Linda, and I don't attempt to change my voice when I'm Greg. And mannerisms, I think they're a lot the same. My interests and what I do with free time and things like that, or a lot of that really is focused on being able to get out and dress as Linda. But like I said, I think that when I was coming to terms with being Linda, um, it I finally figured out that everything just emanates from your center, and it really doesn't matter how you're dressed, um, but it emanates from your center, the little light that's on inside you, and Linda just happens to be part of that light. And I have a lot of fun being Linda. And for me, Linda is a solution. A lot of old history of being transgender was even doctors and psychologists looked at being transgender as a problem, and it was a problem that they were trying to figure out how to cure. Well, my being Linda to me is more of a solution, because when I am know that I'm in a safe space and that I can manifest my personality as Linda, I mean, it's so freeing to me. I spent 52 years trying to cover it up, thinking that it was a problem, and it's not a problem for me. It's a solution. If other people have a problem with it, that's their problem, not mine. I'm pretty close to the perfect situation now, and I have to thank my spouse for helping me create this perfect situation. So I've had no surgeries, I've had no electrolysis, and so to be Linda is high maintenance, and so to be Linda 24/7 would be close to be exhausting these days. I mean, I'm not a youngster, so this what we've hit on is all these great special events that we go to, that Linda can come out as and be accepted. And I really feel like the work that I did for 12 years in advocacy has helped at least to create environments at the symphony and at the ballet and at the opera, to where I can show up as Linda and have a great time with people, and I think that's what counts. I was able to see the opera in Seattle 2 years ago, and it's absolutely beautiful. It tells the story. It tells one story. Let me put it that way. It tells one story beautifully, and that people who are don't understand or not accustomed or don't even really want to think about what it is to be transgender. I think that people will have light bulb moments during this opera, and because everyone who maybe either knows a person that's transgender or even doesn't know a person that's transgender, anything you can do to help turn on those light bulbs in their heads and have them have those aha moments, it's special. It's very special, and I think it's wonderful that the Portland Opera is bringing as one to Portland. The big changes that I've seen in Oregon is that we now have laws that protect the LGBTQ community. And and um, and the big change was that we elected together. We elected officials into government that actually listened to us and said, yes, if you help us get elected, we will fight for you. And they did. And especially our current governor, Kate Brown, who is an opera lover, um, she still fights for us. And so that is a very big change, because when we first started um, advocating for transgender rights, especially after about 2004, the climate was very different in government in Oregon. And so I've seen a huge change, and I feel like I was part of that change, because I went to Hillsborough and testified for their non-discrimination ordinance. I went to meetings. I went to lobby people from my district, which it always has had, or most of the time has had, Republican leadership. So um, that's a huge difference. But the lived experience is different from the legal experience. We still have a really no, let me put it this way. We have a climate in Portland to where people feel and are comfortable in being out in Portland, but there still are people who are not happy that the LGBT community is so free and open, and that it sometimes can lead to hate crimes still in Portland and all over the state of Oregon. So lived experience is still catching up with the legal experience. Well, for me personally, being a member of the transgender community, it means that and the most wonderful thing to me is that I can be out as Linda. And I've always loved fashion. I grew up around powerful women in my family, and so just for me, that's the most wonderful part. And through the advocacy that's been done in the last 15 years, then I can walk on the street. I can walk into businesses and not be overly afraid of how I'm going to be perceived and how I'm going to be treated in that business. Having As One come as a production to Portland for the Portland Opera, that is, to me, that is watershed. I mean, that is fantastic. I mean, I'm very excited about this going on. The other, people just need to stay involved. Things will go back to the way they were if you don't stay out there and if you don't stay involved. And everybody has their level of involvement. Mine just happened to be in personal advocacy. But, in the political ring, I'm terrible at phone banking and canvassing. Absolutely. That's one of the most difficult things for me to do. But a lobby day with elected officials, that I rise to the occasion. attending the San Francisco Opera for my first opera. It was Samson and Delilah, and I was in the War Memorial Opera House in San Francisco for the first time. It was absolutely magical. They have granite staircases and 20-foot by 20-foot mirrors. I mean, in a gown. I mean, it was my Queen Elizabeth moment. I mean, it was just fantastic, and the opera was just life changing to me. It was opera puts all of the art forms together in one setting. Music, singing, orchestra, choreography, beautiful art in the sets. It just puts it all together on the stage for you, and just belts it out. And it was just fantastic. I just had never experienced anything like that. Being Linda has actually been Marsha's and my our journey rather than my journey.